This podcast was recorded during the SAG-AFTRA strike. Without the work of the actors currently on strike, Wonka and a lot of the other things we cover on this podcast wouldn't exist.
Well, I was scheduled to go and check out the Wonka tomes last week, but I got delayed by some sort of intergalactic meteor.
Bummer.
But I'm here now and checking into the library. Beep, 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 boop, boop. That's the noise that the Wonka...
Oh, a little robot runs it now?
We have
That's
one
cool.
of those keypad panel doors outside the Wonka tomes library in the well. That's right, we're back in the well, bitch. We never left.
It doesn't say numbers, it just has onomatopoeias. It has beep, boop, bop, beep, boop.
Yeah.
And you just told everyone our password. Oh my god.
So I get inside there and, oh my god, Elaine, there's books here. And what?
What?
We wrote the books? How could we have done this? I don't remember writing these books.
Neither do I. What?
That's fucking crazy. I think there might be like some sort of chemical leak in this well. Because we've been forgetting a lot of things. I blacked out and I did those songs and now this?
Yeah.
That's not great.
Ooh.
But...
Oh, some of these look familiar.
But some of the... Oh, are these part of a series? Are these part of the series that...
Oh, no.
We have the finales, Elaine. The finales of our two biggest series. The most highly anticipated events ever. Everyone's been waiting.
Literally everyone has been waiting.
Everyone has surely been waiting for another private detective investigator Milano Tollhouse mystery romance.
Yes.
And everyone has been waiting for the conclusion of the Factory 4.
Since episode 9.
Episode 9. Well, we didn't start either of these in episode 9.
I started Factory 4 in episode 9.
You did? Holy shit. Oh my god. I'm sorry. My bad.
No, it's okay. I mean, who would episode 9 to now wrapping it up in episode 101?
That's insane.
That's
like 2 years later.
That's insane.
Yeah. I know, man.
Yeah, what a time, and it was time to wrap it up.
I felt
for me as the author of the Factory 4 Sweet Sweet Revenge, which I'll talk about here in a bit.
Yeah, I won't promise you've seen the last of Private Detective Investigator Milano Tollhouse and Christian Wonka, because honestly, we'll probably do some fan fiction after the Wonka movie comes out, knowing us. And I can't make any promises because I love writing them so much. I'm like attached to them, and I will shoehorn them in to any
I support
media
this.
I can.
Yeah. Sense and Sensibility.
Look, if you see some fics popping up on AO3, Maurice, but Private Detective Investigator Milano Tollhouse is there, you keep your mouth shut, all right? Y'all keep your mouth shut.
Don't say anything, guys. No
Don't
one has to
say
know.
anything.
Just let it happen.
But yeah, so today we're doing Wonka Fanfiction. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Wonka Watch. This is the podcast where we learn about everything and anything related to Wonka leading up to the 2023 December prequel. And sometimes we also just write our own shit. And today is one of those days. Please don't start here. Just don't start here at all. Do not, if you are here for the first time, turn back now.
Yeah.
Go, this is fucking incomprehensible. I'll give you a reading list. You need to listen to episode 9, okay? Fanfiction part 1. You're gonna need to listen to Wonka Rapture Delayed, because that's the Milano Tollhouse reveal. Then the fanfictions part 2 and 3, and then you can come back and join us. If you make it back here after that, good lord, I admire your persistence.
Stoic dad pride is what I feel.
But yeah, today, normally in the fanfiction episodes, one of us writes a few things and one person is one long thing. But today, we both have one long thing and we're just going to trade back and forth. I said earlier I was going to make a Wilfred Wonka Vogue profile. That didn't end up happening because I wrote too much on my main one. So that'll have to be some other time.
Some other time. Very exciting.
But with that all being said, oh my god, there's bookmark in here.
Oh!
It's a piece of Wonka news.
Oh!
Guys, I've had to do this 100 times. I'm running out, okay? They can't all be bangers, all right? It's not going to be Joe and Stu every time, okay?
And then suddenly a ton of bricks fell on Felicia. Her spirit rose, and as a little bit of being, this came forward from the crystal ball. The following Wonka Watch news.
I don't know if I got all that, but I loved it. Well, The first thing I see in the crystal ball is just a great GQ headline. We're not talking about the article, but God, what a headline. Here we go. Timothée Chalamet is really leaning into this Bob Dylan thing. That's it. I just thought it was funny. It made me laugh.
I fucking playing him. So yeah. He really is.
I mean, he kind of is, honestly. He kind of is.
He is. Yeah, that's true. I feel like he was just like, you hear that in passing at the park bench or something.
But now, for an actually exciting note.
Oh.
Wonka is having a float in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade.
Shut the fuck up.
This is from the Wonka movie official Instagram. The Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade just got all the more magical. Wonka is joining on the fun with a float sure to bring you to a world of pure imagination. And I've got the photo here.
Oh, shit.
And I'm excited because this will... I remember, I think I watched the Thanksgiving Day Parade last year, and there was... they always have a high school marching band that plays Pure Imagination, so this is going to be great. Yeah. And I do like watching the Thanksgiving Day Parade, so I will report back. We may have to review this and report on this, but it is like Wonka 2023 movie. Like, it is. We've got the cherry tree, but it looks like the inside of his shop. We've got the cherry tree kind of mixed with the candy, the chocolate room, you know?
Oh. Okay, this is fun.
Yeah.
I actually like this a lot. Yeah, I like the entrance. Yeah, the candy shop. He's got his coat and his hat.
Oh my God, they're going to have people dressed up as Oompa Loompas on this.
I was about to...
Do you think they're going to put a singer on this? You know how in the Thanksgiving Day Parade they put a singer on the random floats and it makes no sense? And they're like, here's Jordan Fisher on the Sesame Street Merry Christmas float. You know? I've watched these every year. And you get Al Roker being like, oh my God! I don't frequently
watch them.
I love them. There's something about like that perfect like corporate event cringe that I get from watching the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade that I just absolutely delight in.
I see that. That makes sense.
I watch it with the same joy I watch Phil from The Amazing Race. Like, so lazily check people in. That man doesn't give a shit anymore. He just wants to go take an hour in his dresser.
They get, like, Ethel Cain on here.
My God. But no, I mean, this is normally they'll slap a Kelly Clarkson on here, you know?
Okay. That could be fun for this, I guess. I could see that. I like the float design. We'll see what interactions are had. But yeah, I kind of see this having like a singer thing,
it looks
like
fun.
You mentioned. Yeah, this looks cute.
But this led to an article from from Polygon by Joshua Rivers, and it was called "Breaking: Do Not Try to Eat the Wonka Float at the 97th Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade." And here are some quotes from it. One of this year's editions will be a float inspired by the forthcoming film Wonka, starring Paul Atreides / Timothée Chalamet. The deliciously delectable world of Wonka will feature a delicately detailed and delectable confections adorning the shop's counters that line the way to the majestic cherry tree, with illuminated candy jars that contain approximately 592,000 pieces of prop candy. They continue, prop candy is an interesting phrase and can be taken one of two ways. The first, less preferable way, is prop, as in fake, meaning candy-shaped and colored objects only suitable for looking. However, it's also possible that prop candy in this context means real edible candy being used as a prop, which would both rule and be lore accurate to Willy Wonka's oeuvre. Friends, I have terrible news. Per a PR rep, it is not edible, but the carts on the side will have edible treats for the public. Okay, and I just appreciated that journalism. Appreciated? Whoa, what happened?
Appreciated it.
I appreciated the journalism. And that's all. That's all I
do love that. That's beautiful. Shall we begin the brain rot?
Yes.
I mean, the masterpieces.
Yeah, so I'm going to start us off. I want to warn everyone, I'm going to have to do a lot of voices in here I've never done before. And to preface where we're at, Elaine knows what my concept is, but she doesn't know the plot or the details, you know?
Yeah.
We've talked vaguely about our idea processes, but nothing too detailed. And this got a little bit away from me. I'm not going to lie. It's a little long.
What?
There's some sections. I texted Elaine and I just texted her 16 and a half pages. It's actually fully 17 because I made some edits.
Responded, no punctuation, holy fuck.
Yeah, and I had to be like, hold on, it's double spaced. Let me clarify, and there's a lot of dialogue. So,
okay.
Yeah. So we're picking up where we left off. I want to give everyone a quick recap, a reminder of where we're at. Very short recap, which is kind of impossible for this, but we're going to try. We have the multiversal Wonka squad. Christian is in charge. The last story, Private Detective Investigator Milano Tollhouse started investigating the multiversal Wonka squad. He showed up at the abandoned Coco Chanel warehouse where they had their operations. Long story short, Private Detective Investigator Milano Tollhouse joined up with the group on their quest to eradicate chewing gum and is kind of working on getting their stories through the press. And him and Christian are a couple. Is that? I think that's everything, right?
I think that covered all the bases.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's fucking insane. I had a friend ask me, like, oh, what's the fan fiction about? And it took me genuinely 15 minutes to explain all the prerequisites required. Because it was so fucking crazy.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Because you have to be like, so this character...
Yeah, and I was like, God, you don't know about Tollhouse. You know? That's a guy I made up. He's not even real. Yeah, Milano Tollhouse is not a character in the Wonkaverse. I just made him fully up, and I'm obsessed with him. All right.
That's why it's beautiful. We have just friends on this listening to this.
Yeah.
This is our just friends. Everyone here knows what's going up.
Exactly.
On, down, and all around. Okay. Take me on a journey, Felicia.
Our title is Half a Life, a Private Detective Investigator Milano Tollhouse Romance Mystery. God damn it, not this shit again. These are the words my partner Christian said to me when he saw his returning compadre Jean standing still at the end of the boat dock. You see, it had been 4 months since I started assisting the multiversal Wonka outfit, spraying the lesser-known Wonka stories through the rags. I was doing it to compensate for the missing starlets as Jean, Timmy, and Johnny were on their 6-month Alaskan cruise, but it was finally the day of their return to port. This is fucking insane, Elaine, but I'm going to open up a Spotify tab and play some film noir very quietly in my ears because it feels empty without this, and that's how I wrote this. You can I wrote this whole thing listening to a film noir playlist, and if it doesn't have the film noir, it's throwing me the fuck off. So there we were. Timmy had already joined us on land. He complained about how the schooner staff wouldn't let him eat soup out of his hat, but he seemed to have a good time otherwise. Jean was just standing still, like a phantom, blocking off an obviously antsy Johnny. Christian turned to me. I mean, you'd think he'd give the role a rest at this point. It's overplayed. Sure enough, Jean soon fell forward, but just before hitting the ground tucked into a somersault, Christian rolled his eyes but took a step forward to greet him. Hey, bud! But Jean suddenly popped up like snakes from a can and cut him off. Well. Fancy seeing you here to greet me. And who's this you've brought with you? I offered out a hand and introduced myself. Private Detective Investigator Milano Tollhouse. Christian lurched forward and pulled my hand out of Jean's reach and locked our fingers together. Yeah, I hired this guy a few months back. He's kind of our... what do you call it, babe? News hawk, I said. Yeah, that. He's also my private dick. Christian had come up with that joke a few weeks ago and was eagerly delivering it to any targets he could. I chuckled. Gross, Johnny Wonka said quietly from his spot behind me as he had slinked off the boat and behind us during the introductions. Huh, Jean said. He paused for a moment, then grabbed his cut-in-half suitcase. Come along, everybody. Let's head back home. Christian, would you mind showing me where our Wonkamobile is? Christian groaned, but led us all back to the bucket, a 2012 Nissan Altima. So I have little sections within my sections, so that's our moment to pause if we want to.
I forgot about your Johnny Wonka voice. It doesn't come out as much because it's not needed.
I'll tell you, that's the only time it's featuring. that was
okay.
It.
That really struck with me.
Yeah.
Private Dick was the cherry on top.
Yeah, I was on my
Sunday.
classic film noir jargon website. If you look it up, you can find it.
That's fantastic.
And when I saw Private Dick as a slang for detective, I was like, oh, you have given me such a gift today.
Thank you so much.
Such a gift.
My ancestors, thank you.
My entire genetic line thanks you. This is incredible. I had forgotten about the 6-month Alaskan cruise, and I was like, fuck, I gotta work that in. We can continue. We'll continue.
Fabulous.
Let me get my noir playlist back going.
Yes.
It's hard because I have to do the voice also in the dialogue, in the like writing.
Yeah.
So if I don't have the noir thing, I forget. So
I'll start fake smoking a paintbrush. How about that?
Shortly after getting back to the joint, all the Wonkas joined together in the new break room in the old Coco Chanel warehouse for a welcome home shindig. Scott had made a cake topped with 6 chocolate cigars, one for each month they'd been away at sea. Big man back in the house! Timmy yelled, with his arms outstretched, presenting Jean to the room. From across the room, Greyhound flitted towards Jean. Ah, glad to see you back. Come up with any new plans for us while away at sea? Didn't know that was in me. Yes, Jean slowly turned towards him. Yes, of course. Wonka never rests. Quite right. While you're here, I thought I could introduce you to one of our new recruits. From behind him stepped a relatively meek man, slightly shorter than Greyhound, wearing quite a similar outfit to Jean. How do you do? Oh god, it's the same fucking voice. It's the same fucking voice. How do you do? It's fine. We're moving on. He said, offering out a hand. Greyhound Wonka clapped a hand on his shoulder. This is Service Now Wonka, or Dom Wonka. We've been splitting the difference and calling him Service Dom Wonka. I heard Henry Wonka chuckle from across the room. I still don't get why everyone thinks that's funny, Service Dom Wonka said quietly to himself. Jean looked him up and down. Interesting coat choice. You could change the hatband, though. Doesn't match your eyes. Christian tapped me on the shoulder. Look, I think he's threatened. Threatened? By Service Dom? I said. Yeah, looks like he's threatened by someone kind of stealing his shit. I thought that Christian might be jumping to conclusions. I glanced around the room and saw 13 men in duds in various shades of purple with top hats perched on their heads like pigeons. If Jean was mad about someone stealing his look, it was unlikely for Service Dom to be the first target. But I refrained from mentioning it. I thought this was a matter for the Wonkas. Maybe I didn't understand the nuances of purple top hat outfit propriety. Christian had been twiddling with his plastic hammer, deep in thought. Suddenly, he grabbed my arm. I think I have an idea. Come with me. He pulled me into the corridor outside the break room and started to lay out his plan. All right, so, I'll admit it, I feel a little perturbed at Jean being back. It doesn't take a Wonka sleuth to figure that out. I know, I'm not subtle. I just don't like him coming back and acting all top orange when I'm the one who got this operation running in the first place. Like he's been gone for 6 months and everything's worked perfectly fine without him. And he didn't even bother to get me a souvenir. I mean, even Johnny got me a postcard. I nodded along, but I wasn't sure I agreed. See, I wasn't all that sure that Jean really wanted to be the one in charge. From my private eye, it seemed like it was the other Wonkas who wanted it, or at the very least expected it. But who was I to say? So, here's my idea. You know I've been trying to get our ranks fully formed, collect the stragglers and all that. I've got a contact for a guy who can get me into the video game world, dig all the Wonkas out of the internet's guts, so to speak. I put it off because, to be honest, Pop Tropica Wonka freaks me the fuck out. But, since I saw Jean get threatened by Service Dom, I can't imagine how pissed he'd be if I pulled out World of Candy Match 3 mobile game Wonka. Mobile Wonka? Yeah, babe, that dude is, like, the exact clone of Jean. Oh, shit. Maybe I could get Slot Machine Wonka, too. Like, if there's 3 Jeans running around, old boy Jeannie isn't gonna feel so special anymore. Perhaps. Okay, perfect. Can you call this number? Christian pulled out a business card from his pocket. I may need you to do a little sleuthing. Of course, I said. I may not have agreed with all of Christian's plans or motives or ideas or thoughts, but I never give up an opportunity to do some sleuthing. And that's section 1.
Oh my god. I love that we are getting Match 3 game Wonka in here. I'm glad we have Service Dom Wonka. And I love that it's the Gene Wonka who's about to be like, why the fuck are y'all taking my look?
Is he, though?
But is he? And I have some suspicions.
Does he just have strong opinions about coats?
Which is also, yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. I'm like, he's our little, our fashionista, our tan France, if you will, of the Wonkas. Oh my gosh. I'm not, every time I hear a Christian Wonka say babe, I feel weird inside.
Oh, no, I know. It's weird, but I'm like, what else would he say, though?
Yeah, what else would he say?
Because of course that's what he'd say. He wouldn't say darling. He'd say babe. He's
none
of the other
guy.
Wonkas would say babe. Only he would, right?
Yeah.
But I was writing it and I'm like, I again, as I get possessed by Christian Wonka to write these.
Yeah. Because we know Service Dom Wonka would say baby girl. That's obviously. That's how.
Most of the Wonkas are a darling person. They love a darling.
Oh, truly.
But Christian loves a babe.
Yep.
Fuck, I don't think Doug's in here. I was about to say, I think I've done every major Wonka, and I fucking snubbed Doug. But Christian would never let Doug be involved, so it makes sense character-wise.
It fits, honestly.
He'd have a lot of issues with
entire presence on on this. But I'm so excited. Wow. Yeah. Thank you for creating this.
Yeah, a lot of voices. Holy shit, a lot of voices.
You really rolled with it, honestly.
And
like, kudos to you. That's so much.
There's still more coming. There's more coming. I have more new ones.
Honey, there's a storm coming for you, and it's all voices.
There's a storm coming, and it's called Spooky Scary Voices.
And now, a minor shift. It all started in episode 9. I wrote a little ditty called The Factory for Sweet Sweet Revenge, something I didn't think I'd continue, but here we are. And now is a very quick run through of what has happened so far. The Factory 4 consists of Veruca, Mike, Violet, and Augustus.
You forgot
Whoa.
the protagonist.
I never have to list them all in a row.
I
I usually just lump them together. That really hurt my brain. Oh God, come back, Elaine.
You'd think after 100 episodes, but
You'd think I know their fucking names in this point. Anyway, 20 years have passed. They're all adults, and they're like, fuck it, we're gonna get revenge on Willy Wonka. He ruined our lives. Fuck this. And so they've met, they've come up with a plan, and basically they have found a way to sneak into the factory thanks to Augustus's friend, Hannah Calloway. He has a romantic moment with her. It doesn't go according to plan. Oopsie poopsie. They go through her secret tunnel smuggling organization to bring in hygiene and vegetables to the Oompa Loompas because they were being malnourished and not treated properly. Who's shocked? And so they use that to go and enter the factory. And at the end, Violet's the last one to go into this little chute, and she talks to her watch and she says, everything's going according to plan, boss. And we're like, oh, Violet, wait, what's going on with Violet? That's crazy. And so we're in the factory. Mike took a pill and is cracked out, and he busted through a wall, and they end up finding Willy Wonka tied to a pole, like he has been already captured in this room that's red, but there's all this candy around, and it's really bizarre. And they trying to figure out what's going on with him. And then suddenly another wall breaks through, and there's the glass elevator, and out steps Charlie Bucket. Evil Charlie Bucket's on the fucking radar, guys. He's around, and he is here to clown. And next to him,
poop mouse.
The little fruit-eating poop mouse flouncing around with that candy man. Oh, I can't wait to speak Augustus. Anyway, so Violet then walks over to Charlie. He hands her a stick of gum, and clearly they have made some kind of pact to get everybody here. And then this weird steam mist starts coming from the ceiling, and Augustus enters. They all enter weird daydreams, and then they
That's right.
That's where we've ended. They've entered daydreams. Violet and Charlie have gone back in the glass elevators. Everyone's falling to the ground.
Okay,
that's where we've left off.
Hot damn.
Any questions?
None. I'm excited. I'm ready.
Okay. The Factory 4. Sweet Sweet Revenge. The bittersweet end.
Fuck yeah.
Charlie Bucket sprawled across his favorite chaise lounge, a green velvet made from Wilkinson's favorite curtains, an item which the man was weirdly obsessed with. Charlie's drawing room was quiet and peaceful. In his youth, he had yearned for his own space, a place where he wasn't stacked on top of his entire family in a crammed, decrepit shack. During his first tour of the chocolate factory, he'd been in awe of its wonder and the grandiosity of the building. It was like entering a different world. When he'd won it, he'd been blinded by the immediate promise of fortune, food, and shelter. He could never have guessed that the miracle would rot. He'd made the drawing room in his teenage years. The Oompa Loompas helped him doodle the walls, doodle on the ceilings, and just draw little things on the floor. When things started to fall apart, he went back and added a lock to the door. Since then, the drawing room was where he would withdraw. He took a big puff from his chocolate cigar, closing his eyes as he thought back to what Wonka had told him in that glass elevator all those years ago. Charlie, don't forget. We gotta remember. Okay, pause. My Wonka has its own voice because I am intimidated to even try to do it because Felicia does such a good one that my brain literally refuses to try, and thus has entered chain smoking Wonka.
Yeah, he's old decrepit Wonka. This is an alternate universe who's separate from any of the Wonkas we've talked about. This is its own. Factory 4 Wonka is his own fucking guy. Okay, so if any of you make fun of Elaine for it, I'm sensitive. I know where you live. No, I don't.
Thanks, Felicia.
You'll be hearing from me about it.
Yeah. Anyway, Charlie, don't forget what happened to the man who suddenly got. Why is that weird Christopher Walken?
It sounds like you're half turning into Gonzo while you talk.
Charlie, don't forget what happened to the man who suddenly got everything he always wanted.
Just do Joe and Stu. Just don't do Joe and Stu.
Joe and Stu. Oh, thank you. That's beautiful. Okay. He took a big puff from his chocolate cigar, closing his eyes as he thought back to what Wonka had told him in that glass elevator that fateful day. Charlie, don't forget what happened to the man who suddenly got everything he always wanted, he'd said. What? Young Charlie replied. He lived happily ever after. But who could have guessed Wonka was talking about himself? Charlie exhaled the smoke coming out in rings that slowly turned into chocolate donuts. The entire floor was littered with them. He planned to pack them in a box and send them to the governor. Wonka admittedly was a good businessman, but he never bothered using his political skills outside of the factory. Over the years, Charlie began rubbing elbows with the head of OSHA, then the FDA, the district attorney, the mayor, and so on. Wonka looked down on these connections, claiming nothing good came from meddling with the law, despite actively breaking many laws himself. Charlie kept his networking to himself after that. Wonka remained a bit of a recluse, so he had no idea what Charlie got up to outside of the factory gates. Now, Charlie had the police and a handful of key political figures in his pocket. It was wild the power a chocolate bar could have, especially when it was laced with Ambien. Another fun fact, everybody. There was a knock on the drawing room's door. Charlie frowned. "What is it?" he bellowed. "It's me." A donut fell from his cigar into his lap, smudging his pants. Pinching between his brows, he forced a cheerful tone. "Come in!" Violet opened the door and made her way to the stool opposite him. Charlie rarely had visitors here, and when he did, he tried to get them out as soon as possible. People hated stools. Charlie hated stools. Stools were perfect. But Violet sat on the floor in front of it, quirking a brow at the piles of donuts. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" Charlie said. Violet picked up one of the donuts and started to pick it apart. "You know what I want." "Ah," Charlie said. "But you know the agreement." "I do, and it's been 12 hours, Violet snapped. Charlie lazily lifted his wrist and checked his watch. "Tisk, tisk, Violet. You have 7 minutes to go." Violet crushed the donut in her hand and threw it across the room. "Really? You're seriously going to count down to the last minute?" "No, I intend to count down to the last second."
Damn.
"Don't test me, Bucket," Violet said. "You know you can't pull this off without me." It was true, but Violet didn't need to know that he knew that. "Vi, I want your father to do well with the launch. We already have the marketing set up for the chalk car lot giveaway. The contract is squared away, so no worries on anyone walking back on their word. And the consequences are so severe," Charlie sighed. "Please, don't make this difficult." Violet continued ripping up the donut. The last stick lost its flavor pretty quickly there, Charlie. "Oh, that's such a shame." "Some candy man you are," she grumbled. That would be true if Charlie hadn't purposely made low-quality gum for Violet's rations. She was addicted to the stuff, so much so that she'd sold out her comrades. He'd been surprised when he received her letter. Wonka had seen and immediately said she wasn't allowed on the premises. "She's done enough damage," Wonka had said. Yet again, Wonka failed to see the opportunity in networking. Charlie secretly wrote back, and the two rendezvoused at Cafe Mungo, well known for their croissants.
Is that Hugh Grant's middle name?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, man.
"Long time," Charlie said. "Let's cut to the chase, Blondie," Violet said. "I haven't had a good piece of gum in over a decade. You want to know the last good gum I had?" When?" "The day of the factory tour." Charlie frowned. "You turned into a blueberry and had to be juiced." "Which was awful, but that's how good that gum was. It's worth risking it again," Violet had said.
Damn, girl.
"Well, unfortunately, Wonka decided to not move forward with chewing gum," Charlie said. "Does he still have the machine?" Violet grabbed Charlie's hand desperately. "No, that was destroyed years ago. I'll do anything for more gum, Blondie. Anything." At that point, the goodness of Charlie Bucket was a glowing ember teetering on the edge of burning or snuffing out. But when he thought of the one thing he wanted, the one thing he'd never fully admitted out loud to anyone, it came to him in a flash. "How would you like to get revenge on Wonka?" It'd been simple after that. Violet reached out to Augustus and planted the idea that the Factory Four should all get together to figure out how to get revenge on Wonka. Violet would play along. Meanwhile, Charlie would take care of the chocolatier on his end. He hadn't originally planned on taking down the Factory Four, but over the years they'd said slanderous things that people actually believed. Payback to all of them. "So, how long are the idiots out for, you think, on that weird mist?" Violet asked. Charlie snapped back to reality, sitting up. "I'm hoping for 24 hours. They've already been put away." Violet smirked. "And will they ever be getting out?" "No," Charlie said. "No one who saw Wonka tied up like that is ever getting out."
Wow.
End of part 1.
So they're getting framed? Or are they capturing them? I mean, you don't have to reveal it now, but...
Yeah,
wow.
Oh, for sure. But yeah, we got some insight about why Charlie's feeling a little...
I feel like tonally, we're on the opposite ends of the spectrum. But somehow, chewing gum is very relevant in both.
Fucking hilarious.
Things never change.
Yeah, so Charlie is using Violet's gum addiction against her and the others.
And I hope you take no offense to this. I feel like I'm watching like almost like a Riverdale-esque reboot.
No, genuinely, that is the highest compliment I've ever received.
I know that's kind of what you're going for. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you.
I think your Evil Charlie Bucket was shockingly vivid. Just shockingly vivid, you know? I think you did a great job with that.
Wow, thank you.
I got lost in the world. I got lost.
Why is Evil Charlie Bucket a little hot? Is a question I'm sure someone listening just asked.
He's got some
you
Loki vibes. Do you know what I mean?
He does have Loki
There's
vibes. Okay.
Yeah, he's got that kind of character energy. Again, reminder, they are aged up. Just to the audience.
Yes, everyone is like 25 at this stage, I think.
At the
Beyond
very least.
25 to 30, that's where we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, depending on how old they were at the factory. It's been 20 years. Maybe 30s, early 30s.
Yeah, they're early 30s.
Full-fledged adults.
Exactly.
Not really close too much to what they were.
Yeah, they're like something
really,
else. This is bored. You could change about 12 things and this would be purely original fiction. Like, it's not.
Yeah. So just to clear the air on everything else that happens from here on henceforth.
Yeah. All right. I love it. I'm excited. Shall we dip our toes back into the multiversal Wonka squad?
Take me back.
All right.
Yes.
Get that film noir back running. Throw the radio back on. A few days later, the lackey I rang showed up at the warehouse. He wore a tan jacket and had sort of a middle-aged page boy haircut. He greeted me and rolled in a large computer on a metal cart. Good to meet you, Mr. Tollhouse. I spent the last weeks adjusting my miraculous machine exactly to your specifications, and it is ready to locate all the digital Wonkas you desire. We'll be able to see them on this small screen here, and if they so choose, they can join us in the material world. I gave him the coordinates for the Match 3 mobile game, and he entered them into the machine and took a step back. The machine made a low humming noise, and I saw the computer guy glaring his peepers at it, almost seething with rage. After a few minutes, the lights of the machine light up green. Oh, thank the Lord, he said under his breath. All right, Mr. Detective, the Wonkas should be able to speak to you. Just type what you'd like to say into the machine. I approached the machine, and sure enough, on the screen I saw what looked like a version of Gene, although his features had been smoothed by strokes of paint. He was in what looked to be his office, arranging tiny candies on his desk into groups of 3. I clacked in the machine. Hello, Mr. Wonka. I'm a representative of the multiversal Wonka squad asking you to join our forces. Your interdimensional counterparts are working on eradicating chewing gum from existence, and we could use your assistance. The Wonka seems to look above him, gazing at my words in confusion. I did that in the wrong tense. The Wonka seemed to look above him, gazing at my words in confusion. Before long, though, he shrugged and said aloud, "Thank you, but no thank you. I have everything I need right here." Then there was a knock at the door, and the Wonka turned. "Coming, darling. My apologies. I must be on my way." I typed in the machine, "No sweat, Cheddar," and nodded to the computer guy to turn the machine off. As we retrieved Pop Tropica Wonka, my mind was racing with questions. What did this Wonka have that our Gene didn't? Who was his darling? Shortly after nabbing Pop Tropica, the machine went on the fritz, so I was unable to reach out to the slot machine Wonka. As I watched Computer Guy curse loudly at his machine, I realized that this failure was a sign for me to investigate further. There must have been another way to solve this Gene problem, and it was up to me to figure it out. So that's the part of the first section in that. Yeah, it's real plot heavy, guys.
I'm like, the Match 3 Wonka interaction was exactly what I wanted. And who's the darling? I'm so
Who's
intrigued.
the darling?
Who's the darling? What's going on?
I know.
Computer Man also, fantastic voice.
I
You
know.
nailed it.
Yeah. That was I knew I had that one in me, so that one wasn't scary.
That one's always ready to go. That one is like a birth.
He's in my back pocket. I'll be honest, I re-listened to the Drag Race episode, remembered the computer guy exists, and then got excited. So I thought of it.
Fabulous. I love that the Drag Race episode inspired you for
Yeah.
Feed me more.
That afternoon, I was in the break room, pouring coffee into the tin can I drank out of. Wilfred waltzed in. Yeah, I know. I know.
tin can he drinks out of.
Yeah, I established that in the last one, and I gotta keep it going.
I forgot. Oh my god.
Wilfred waltzed in. Phew! I lost him for a minute. Wilfred had been assigned as Poptropica's orientation buddy. I mean, I know we all take some time to adjust, but this guy's really pushing it for me. He won't do anything himself. He literally threw his hat across the room and asked me to pick it up for him. Wilfred sighed and made his way to the nougat cabinet. Ooh, a meal hooked us up good. It finally occurred to me. Wilfred's known as the gossip around the office. If anyone knows if our Gene has some big secret, it'd be him. Wilfred, I wanted to ask you, have you noticed anything off about Gene? He hacked to slice some nougat off the nougat log with an axe. Ooh, is Mr. Tollhouse finally stooping down to my level and getting in on the gossip? It's for an investigation. Christian asked me to. Oh, of course he did. You know, you only let yourself get involved if Christian tells you to, huh? You gotta give yourself more credit. I shrugged. Well, luckily for you, I have, and I'm dying to tell someone about it, so don't think I'm doing this for you or the show tunes, bitch. This is for me. Of course, I pulled out my vertical ring-bound notebook and flipped to the first blank page. Okay, so, you know how Opera Wonka has those gargoyles he brought with him and put in every room? He pointed towards the gargoyle perched atop the fridge. We all just kind of indulge him because, like, none of us really get him. But it turns out the gargoyles can sing, and they sing to him specifically and tell him all about the goings-ons across the building. Damn. I know, right? So it turns out he's been sitting on this absolute mountain of gossip, and he's been trying to tell me about it for weeks because of my reputation. But I was so pissed at him at stealing my idea for a Christmas album, I'd been giving him the silent treatment. Scott a few weeks ago convinced me to give him another chance, and after I finally heard him out, we've been chatting away. I mean, once you get used to the singing, it's not too bad. So Gene. Oh, yes, Gene. I was getting there, though. I was. Well, one of the gargoyles saw him writing in a journal and, like, crying or something. I know, embarrassing. And they said he was holding a photo with, like, a guy in it. I mean, I personally wouldn't be surprised if it was Gourmand Eustace, but that's my take. I need to see that photograph, I said. At that moment, the exact person I needed walked into the room. The sticky-fingered Timmy Wonka came in to refill his collection of hat cake from the fridge, and I enlisted him in my plan. Isn't that a fucking insane sentence? I'm gonna do that one more time. The sticky-fingered Timmy Wonka came in to refill his collection of hat cake from the fridge, and I enlisted him into my plan. God, I forgot. I forgot the next part. Fuck. Got another voice coming. 2 days later, I found the photograph laying on my desk, the edges slightly stained with frosting from its former hiding place in Timmy Wonka's hat. It was a small photograph, like the size you'd put on a dresser or a desk, but not hang on the wall. Strangely, though, it seemed to have been ripped in half. What was left was the image of a tall man, wearing thin glasses and a dark coat, with a hat that was distinctly not a top hat. There was a hand resting on his shoulder, but who it belonged to had been torn away. I found myself stuck. I'd uncovered something here, but there was no logical next steps. I pride myself on my logical nature, but I recognize that sleuth in the world of the Wonkas doesn't always require logic. This required something more mystical. That afternoon, I found myself knocking on Henry Wonka's door. After the sixth knock, he whipped the door open. "Oh dear, you've woken me from my slumber," he said in an almost whisper. And then I finally recognized... Sorry, I want to take that again. I know. I didn't get the oh dear right. "Oh dear, you've woken me up from my slumber," he said in an almost whisper, and then finally recognized that I was his visitor. "Goodness, didn't expect to see you here." The feeling is mutual. Look, I'm in need of some assistance. I've reached a stopping point in a case. I'll do it. Doesn't matter what it is, I'll do it. All these Wonkas look up to Gene and Christian like they're gods. Meanwhile, their best creations are a shitty car wash and a fully mime-based invisible maze. I'm just happy for my talents to be recognized. Of course. I pulled the photo out of my pocket and showed it to him. I was wondering if you could tell me about the man in this photo. His hat is short. More than that. Ah, well, why don't you come inside then? And that's the end of section 2.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
There's nothing untoward that they're doing together, I want to be clear. Henry just talks like that.
I know, that's what makes it wild. There's like so many layers here. As many layers as you might find in a top hat cake.
Did you not see Wilkinson coming? Because you seemed shocked.
Oh, no. I loved it. It just warmed my heart that it was happening.
Okay. I was like, I feel like the writing's on the wall just from our history.
Oh,
here.
no. It's just
just excitement about the moment happening. Yeah.
Part 2 of The Factory 4 Sweet Sweet Revenge, The Bittersweet End. Augustus frolicked through a meadow, The flowers were in full bloom, their petals beautiful croissants. He picked one up and twirled mid-frolic. He felt beautiful and alive. In the distance, a brown, long-haired puppy bounded toward him. "Oh, what a sweet little cow! I shall name him Gussie!" The puppy pounced on him, and he was surprisingly heavy, knocking Augustus to the ground. "Whoa there, little Gussie! Your dainty paws are like anvils on my delicate bones! My skeleton is like meringue! Be gentle, my little pot roast!" The dog licked his face, but his tongue slapped him in the process. "Ack! Stop, little Gussie! Stop that!" But the slapping continued. Augustus's head began to ache, and he shut his eyes, trying and failing to remove the puppy from his chest. When he opened his eyes, the meadow was burning. The puppy shifted into a moose that growled at him. "Oh no, not the pointed-headed bald horse!" Just as the moose charged him, Augustus woke with a start. The room was dark and cold. His body was sore, but he seemed to be okay otherwise. Something heavy and cold slapped his cheek, and he turned his head to see a giant glob of water fall and splash into his face. It was ice cold, and he squealed, rolling over quickly. He was awake now, heart pounding, and it all came back to him. Willy Wonka already held captive in his own factory by Charlie Bucket, Violet's betrayal, Mike's scary pills, Veruca's long syringe, and the pink mist that had fallen upon them, and he'd fallen into such a lovely daydream. Taking in his surroundings now, his delicate little heart sank. He was in a prison cell. In a dungeon! He slowly stood up. The cell was made of stone, with wrought iron bars that allowed him to see into the hall, which was faintly lit by torch. "I'm so scared," Augustus thought. Then he jumped.
What is that voice? Stop it! Stop! What is this?"
Dear listener, Augustus realized he had never had an internal monologue before. His panic heightened. Who is that? Augustus said out loud, looking to the heavens. It was one thing to hear his voice inside his head, but another to hear a second voice outside of it. Augustus stuck his hand through the iron gate, waving furiously. "No, I haven't," Augustus thought. His hand was right at his side. "What are you saying? Ack! The voice inside my head is still there. What a soft, buttery tenor!" Suddenly, a pair of keys flew into his hand. He gasped. Augustus thought he was losing his mind. But keys, they could help him unlock the door. "Of course they would help unlock the door, you goofy buttcake." "Stop making sounds inside of my head, whatever you are," Augustus said. He clutched the sides of his head. This must be one of Wonka's mind games. Or maybe it was Charlie's. Regardless, he had to get out of here before he went mad. With no other direction than the godly voice he heard, he made his way to the iron bars and shakily put his hand out. In a whoosh, a ring of keys fell into his palms, and he did, indeed, gasp. Gasp! Augustus didn't know what this meant, but before he could overthink anything, he quickly worked the key into the lock. "Now what?" Augustus thought. "Now what?" Augustus said. "Stop talking." "No, you stop talking." While Augustus argued with himself, a creature of great darkness crept down the corridor, ready to feed.
What the fuck is going on? I'm enjoying it, but I just want to level with you. What the fuck is going on? So what you can't see is bold, italicized, and regular.
Well,
so, I understand what's going on, but I'm just saying a broader what the fuck is going on.
Oh, a broader what the fuck. I was like, really fair if it's literally making no sense.
I do understand what is going on, but just more of a broader, huh? I love it. But
but what? You know. Yeah, no, don't worry. That's, don't worry.
I believe in it. I know it's
be worried, but also, no, this is when I was like, what the fuck am I doing? What the fuck am I doing?
You're like, what if I get experimental with it?
What if we have a narrator and then this weird thinky voice and also Augustus's voice? Isn't that something fun? While Augustus argued with himself, a creature of great darkness crept down the corridor, ready to feed. Augustus froze. A creature of what? A creature of great darkness, creeping, ready to feed. Oh, fudgy pops, he thought. No, stop thinking for me. I am you. What? Augustus stood in the corridor. Augustus stood in the corridor. His cell was in the middle of the hallway. The silence made his heart pound harder. Maybe the big voice is playing games with me, he thought. This can't be real. But it didn't explain how a pair of keys to his cell had magically fallen out of the sky into his palm. He gazed upward, seeing that there was no ceiling, just an expanding darkness that chilled him to the bone. A short gust blew from his left. A torch at the end of the hall snuffed out. Something scraped against the floor, ringing in Augustus's ears. The creature made its way to Augustus, the smell of his blood making it hungrier and hungrier. No, I do not have blood, Augustus said loudly. He walked away from the dark end of the hall, voice shaking. No, none whatsoever. If I did have blood, it would be a weird texture to it like hummus. So gross, tee-hee-hee, ew. Suddenly the creature gave chase, Augustus unaware. Its maw enveloped him, and he succumbed to that final slumber. What? No, I resist. Augustus was aware, and he resisted, Augustus yelled. He broke out into a sprint. Another gust of air puffed from behind him, and he shrieked, Ah! This is not good at all, Augustus thought. No, internal monologue. Stop. Not now. Augustus ran in a blind panic. He could feel the hot breath of whatever creature was behind him, clearly catching up. He was almost near the end of the corridor, which then led to a stairwell with an open door. If he could just make it there and close the door, he might break free.
I hope so. These stones are so slippery, though, and I've always been told I had weak ankles. Damn you, genetics, for ruining my career at Double Dutch,
Augustus thought. Stop it! Augustus yelled, trying to pierce through his cursed inner monologue. He didn't need to be thinking about slippery stones and weak ankles when he was running for his life. The creature exhaled loudly, and Augustus could feel the warmth on the back of his neck. He was almost to the end of the hallway. 5 more steps. 4. 3. His feet landed between stones in the floor, wobbling him off course. He tried to catch himself, but he was moving forward way too fast, and the stones really were so slippery, and he fell. Hard. Augustus tried to crawl, scrambling wildly. His hand was on the doorframe, the only light now coming from the stairwell. He gave one big tug to pull himself inside, when he felt a cold, dripping claw wrap around his leg. Augustus kicked wildly, but his other leg was ensnared. He flipped on his back, the creature shrieking at him. Augustus, like many before, was not able to beat the beast as it ripped him limb from limb. Perhaps the moral of the story is that revenge leads to nothing good, or that poorly made plans lead to poorly found conclusions. Or maybe... ... End of section 2.
Holy shit, man. You're getting crazy with it.
That one hurt my head.
Yeah, that was a lot. I loved it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was very, shocking. You don't expect experimental form
You really
of
don't.
writing on a Wonka fanfiction. But I loved what you did with it.
Thank you.
I have a few theories going.
Oh,
I don't know if any of them are right. I was thinking Minus Land for a minute, and then I'm thinking maybe the creature's Mike, or maybe this is all still a dream. I don't fucking know.
Who's to say? I mean, it sounds like Augustus died, so I really don't know
well, yeah.
what more could happen.
I mean, I do.
It's shocking I have anything else to write.
I know. And we go to part 3, and you're like, actually, this is all blank.
I would get run off this podcast.
I think you would. Yeah.
The people would not want me anymore.
Section 3. We're back in the sauce.
Section 3. I'm so
Section
excited.
3,
Oh my
back in the
god.
sauce. I'm gonna say this first because this doesn't you don't get this from audio, and I realize this is unclear because it's all read in Detective Tollhouse's voice, but he's speaking when we start off this chapter.
Okay.
So, Henry used the photo to scry for the man's location. Turns out he's from Jean's dimension. He had a vision of the man in a cottage, and it turned out he had the other half of the photo on his desk. As I suspected, Jean was the chump behind the mystery arm. Christian pumped his fist in the air and kissed me on the forehead. Fuck yes! God, you're the best. Okay, perfect. I mean, now, I don't even care about the Match 3 guy bailing. This is way more juicy. Now all we need to do is show Jean that his old boyfriend has moved on, and then I'll get off my case. Christian's analysis of the situation didn't match up with mine. See, this didn't seem like a case of unrequited love. It seemed like mutual love lost. Are you sure that's the most logical thing here, Christian? Well, I don't know about logical, but I do want us to. I had my reservations, but where does logic lie in the world of Wonka? I decided to continue with Christian's plan, but not in any sort of hurry. I spent the next few days formulating my scheme. The goal was simple on the surface, but the mechanics weren't making sense. I'd have to get Jean to engage in some mystical endeavors with Henry, a man who Jean genuinely seemed to have a distaste for, and then somehow skew the image of mutual longing into something else. I was stumped. Thankfully, the solution fell into my lap. One day, I heard a rap on the door, and shockingly, Jean entered my office. Greetings. I was wondering if I could enlist your help in a case. Are you a general Wonka sleuth or truly Christian's private dick? I sleuth indiscriminately. Good. Possession of mine was stolen from me recently, and while normally I do a scary poem to shake people up, I don't think my usual techniques will work for others of my kind. I felt the stolen picture burning a hole in my left pocket. I see. What sort of item was it? Well, its monetary value was very little, but it was important to me. It reminds me of someone who, well, let's just say I have a lot of regrets and it would save me a great deal of anguish if I got it back. I see. Gene dragged his hands down his face. God, I'm not sure why I'm telling you all this. It's just a photograph. Maybe it's just nice talking to someone who's not a Wonka. At least you don't expect so much. I nodded. I'll see what I can do. Great! Gene slapped his hands on his knees, jumped up, and headed towards the door. Good day, sir. He closed the door, leaving me alone with my thoughts and my tin can of coffee. My suspicions had been confirmed. The man in the photograph must have been Match 3 Wonka's darling. If I kept the couple apart, I'd be separating Gene from his other half. Maybe if I brought them together, Gene might take a step away from the Wonka squad anyway. I mustered up the courage to set my new plan into action. So here we go. You're gonna get what you hate again. You ready? What's all this, babe? Christian said, seeing my corkboard full of red string and photographs. I'd invite him in my office to get him on board with my new plan. I know you had a way you wanted this Gene scheme to go, but I think you haven't fully unraveled the yarn. I'll be honest, I don't know totally what you mean, but I love hearing you talk. Go for it, hun, sleuth it up! So I laid it all out for him, the behaviors I observed, the signs of love lost and the misconceptions he had made. As I explained, I watched his face go from his default smugness to something bordering on sad. Oh shit. Gene never even wanted to take over, did he? Doesn't seem like it. Christian put his head in his hands. God, why didn't you tell me sooner? It's so weird having these characters act genuinely as like people with problems. It's so fucking crazy.
It's so wild.
Ugh.
So wild.
I wanted to, I just wasn't sure if it was my place. The Wonkas don't always operate it logically. You know, maybe I was the one misreading it. You're right. We don't always, but we should try a little harder. You know, that's part of why I have you here, besides your rockin' bod, is to kind of keep us all in check.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Felicia.
Look, okay, someone has to bring the spice, okay?
Someone has to bring the spice.
Look, you're never getting a Grandpa Joe and Gene again. You're never getting Grandpa Joe ex Wonka again. But I will go around the rings of Saturn of it. Do you know what I mean?
I love it.
That makes no sense, but okay. You know, it's part of why I have you here, besides your rockin' bod. It's kind of to keep us all in check. I'm sorry if I made you feel like you couldn't. You didn't. I was in a clink of my own making. Christian tried to ruffle my hair, but because I was wearing my signature fedora, he just sort of knocked it off my head. There's my melodramatic private dick. It's awful. I know it's awful. He stood up from his chair and offered a hand to help me up. Well, it looks like us lovebirds are going to have to orchestrate a little reunion, huh? I hate to say it, considering how much old Gene slaps my buttons, but I kind of hope they get back together. I grabbed his hand. Me too. That's the end of part 3.
I'm glad that they're like working together because I did think we were about to have like conflicting interests.
Well, they did at the beginning.
They did. That's so true.
This is called I made a sheet with character arcs. I was trying to build for this. There's character arcs. There's motive. Because the other stories,
fantastic.
Yeah, we had the characters, but there wasn't much growth. I was like, I'm making character growth, bitch.
Are you ready for part 3 of The Factory 4 Sweet Sweet Revenge? The Bittersweet End? Augustus woke up in a cold sweat, sitting up straight. He frantically looked around to see he was in a small, dark room. A prison cell. In a dungeon. Again. He quickly checked his body for injuries and found none. But the creature caught him. He'd felt its claws dig into him. He'd been surrounded by darkness.
What is going on?
Augustus cried. Augustus stuck his hand through the iron gate, waving furiously. What? No, that already happened, Augustus said.
This is impossible.
His inner monologue said in his British now? Cool.
This is impossible.
His inner monologue said.
I miss the days when it was quiet up in there. I am too self-aware now. I hate it. Silence, little mind,
Augustus said. But his words were drowned out by the narrator. Suddenly, a pair of keys flew into his hands. He gasped. Augustus sat unmoving and watched a ring of keys fall to the ground outside of his cell.
This can't be happening,
his inner monologue said. Drat, not this again, Augustus said. A creature of great darkness crept down the corridor, ready to feed. Oh, brittle bites! Augustus flattened himself on the back of his cell. Maybe the creature would just go by and he could free himself later. But soon he was surrounded by darkness. He let out a little cry before feeling the cold claws clutch him again, squeezing him like the tube that fateful day. He screamed. And when he blinked his eyes open, he was alone in his cell. In a prison. In a dungeon. The torchlight still coming from down the hallway.
This is fucking crazy.
Augustus stuck his hand through the iron gate, waving furiously.
Is it a Stanley parable? What is this? This is insane. I love it.
I'm being groundhogged? Seriously? I hate groundhog plots. They're so annoying. Like what? You were too lazy to write a new part of the story, so you just copied and pasted what you already had, and then added a few little low-hanging fruit bits just to keep people nibbling on your rotting carcass of a story? Well, that's not nice. It's true. Why is he French?
Whoa!
It's true! Fine, we can speed this up then. Total darkness. Augustus screamed. Cold claws. His eyes snap open. Empty cell. In a passionate fit of rage, Augustus charged the iron gate, knocking it down completely. He ran toward the stairwell, unstoppable. Wait, I haven't even started yet. Deal with it, you bodiless fuckface! You tell him, inner monologue, Augustus said. Before the voice could even mention the creature, Augustus slammed the door to the stairwell shut and started taking the steps 2 at a time. They started moving beneath him, and he realized he was on an escalator. Even better, he stopped walking and slowly took the ride up. When he heard nothing, he sighed. Inner monologue, are you there? But all he heard was silence. Oh well, that was nice while it lasted. At the top of the escalator, he entered what looked like a doctor's waiting room if it lived in a castle. Based on the cobwebs and layers of dust, it hadn't been used in years. Augustus sat down on one of the regal chairs and took a moment. He was torn between finding the others and just saving himself. On the one hand, he'd gathered them all together in the first place. On the other hand, they weren't great people, and he wasn't sure he had the patience at this point to deal with them. If only they could find me here on this abandoned strange part of the chocolate factory where we all clearly were separated and sent to strange dungeons, that would make my life so much easier, but alas, Augustus said. At that moment, the wall across the way broke, releasing a wave of nuts. His eyes widened when he saw Mike surfing down them. Mike saw Augustus and cheered. Fuck yes! I knew those guys would help me! Mike, what are you talking about? Who? But then they came. A fluffy, tittering army of squirrels began to pour out of the wall. They wore leather armor and tiny, adorable helmets. Wonka squirrels! Turns out they hate him, and they love me! Mike, I have so many questions. I thought you weren't allowed around animals anymore. Who cares? I'm here now, babes! Suddenly, Veruca popped her head out from the nuts, her face pale. I am done with all of you after this. All of you! Her hands were cuffed, and a larger squirrel nudged her forward. Why is she held captive but you aren't, Mike? Augustus asked. Yeah, well... Okay, I'll say it. Veruca sucks. No one can stand her, even the wildlife. They remembered her from 20 years ago, too, and we all were like, okay, sure, tie her up, it's fine. So you left her tied up? Augustus said. It is so barbaric, Veruca cried. An excellent idea, Mike, Augustus said. Mike's eyes started to get watery. That's the first time anybody has said that to me. Bring it here, man. The two men engaged in a platonic and quick hug.
You were like, don't go shipping it now. I have plans.
What happened to you? How did you get here? Mike picked up a handful of nuts and threw them across the room. Charlie, fuck it, had me and the V locked up together in some kind of warm fuzzies room where you're supposed to talk about your feelings. It was literal hell, dude. Mike said he was concerned about me, Veruca said. Disgusting! Mike yelled loudly, making everyone pause. Ah! Sorry, that's how I delete memories from my brain. Works like a charm. Now what were we saying? Anyway, Veruca said.
I love your factory, guys. They're so fun. They're so insane. I love them so much. And I will say, we give you grief for your Wonka voice, but your factory kids' voices are on point. You killed those.
Thank
your Charlie's great. Your Veruca's great. Your Violet's... your
Violet's pretty milk. She's whatever. Yeah. She's boring.
She's pretty milk.
No offense to Violet. She's
pretty milk. As we all say.
Mike kept screaming higher and higher, and apparently that turned into him somehow speaking squirrel because those little wretches came through a vent and started talking to him. And I talked back, bro, Mike said. These dudes are gonna get us out of here. They're leading us to Charlie. Ugh. A brave man you are, Augusta said. He looked at Veruca. Please get therapy this time, Veruca. I can only vouch for you so long. Veruca sneered at him, but didn't say anything after the large squirrel shot her a glare. You ready to go to war, man? Augusta steeled himself. I am. End of section 3.
Wow. There we go. That's wild. The Groundhog Day segment in the middle, I didn't expect, but I love how we ended up. Was that Minus Land, or was that just...
It was. It's never mentioned. I didn't have time to really, flesh that out, and that was a Ganuli following him.
Thank fucking God. I'm so glad I fucking caught that.
Yeah.
I love it. So I like that this Wonka has an escalator up for Minus Land.
Yeah, well, it's like, oh, an escalator. I don't need to run anymore.
I loved that. That was great. And did Minus Land just give him some more internal insight powers, I guess? Something about that place makes you self-reflect?
I didn't get to fully do it, so I don't want to do that thing where I'm like, oh, I didn't do it. Now we all get to be sad I didn't. But it was going to be the Dungeon of Tropes.
Ah.
And so his trope was Groundhog Day, which I personally find to be one of the most annoying tropes ever. There's like one movie I accepted in, but I hate that trope so much. Yeah, I was going to have like, this would have made it like 20 pages long, and I couldn't do that. So maybe that can be a separate thing I do for Buy Me a Coffee at some point. But yeah, it's the Dungeon of Tropes, and everyone's in their own thing. Mike was going to be in a rom-com.
Oh my God, I love that.
Veruca in like a crime beat caper or something. Yeah, I had a couple ideas. So one day maybe we'll write down what the trope dungeon was. But it was Minus Land essentially. And I love that. But Augustus got out. He broke it. So he had a narrator and also an inner monologue while he was also trying to talk. And it was supposed to bring you to like insanity. So
that made sense. Well, the two things we didn't get out of that was rom-com and crime beat. But you know what I have in mind? Rom-com and crime beat. We got the rom-com and crime beat? We're finishing out the tropes, bitch. Woohoo! Just get yourself all ready to do some wholesome grimaces and to go, ugh, you know?
Oh, I'm so excited, babe.
I like love and hate writing romance. Every time I write a line, I'm like, oh, that's disgusting. Keep it in. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
In order to get Gene to reunite with his lost love, I need to get him on board with the plan. While I may be the world's prime Wonka sleuth, I'm not always the best with matters of the heart. But there was someone in the Wonka squad who was. Scott. I had to begrudgingly take some of his chocolate cigars and sort of mimed eating them, because my body's a temple. But I got him on board, and he spent the next few days getting Gene to open up. I was waiting for him to report back in my office when suddenly I heard the grinding of stone. The gargoyle opera had placed on the top of my filing cabinet was turning towards me. It opened its mouth and sang, "The plan is a go!" "Thank you." The gargoyle nodded, solemnly. Seconds later, Scott bursted in the room. "All right, you were right. It took a while for him to open up, but after we watched Beaches together, he felt comfortable. He was very much torn up over Wilkinson still. Turns out they were supposed to retire together. But he got the call for the Wonka squad and felt that it was his duty to continue. A Wonka never rests and all that. He regrets it, not just because he finds most of us mildly annoying. He has thoughts of going back, but he's not sure how to patch it up. Or how to get back in the first place." I pointed towards the gargoyle. "Say no more. He filled me in already." "Oh, we should probably get rid of those. It's definitely some sort of HIPAA violation. But you're saying, if we orchestrate a meeting between them, it'll work out?" "I would bet my warehouse of candy counters on it," Scott said. The reunion was saccharinely sweet, and I'll save you from some of the gory details. Henry performed a ritual to open up a portal to Gene's original dimension, and there, I saw Wilkinson in the flesh for the first time. He was remarkably unsurprised to see us, but I saw his face light up when he spotted Gene in the crowd. Gene apologized for leaving him, said how he thought he didn't want him back because he never heard from him. Wilkinson apologized for not reaching out. He had assumed Gene didn't want to hear from him. As they embraced, Gene said, "You were right, darling. It's time for me to take a break." Wilkinson chuckled. "I'm glad you've come around." They stepped through the portal together and waved goodbye to us all. "Good day, you all," Gene shouted. I turned towards Christian, and he wasn't smug at all. He looked remarkably happy. That's the end of my...
Oh my God, that's so cute.
I know, right? Isn't it disgusting?
Ew, that's so cute.
The Wonkas are happy.
Make me
Fuck
feel
this.
happy and fuzzy.
They have brought us nothing but harm, and I, out of my good graces, have given them happy endings.
This is very therapeutic.
Honestly, it's kind of wholesome. If the Wonkas can find love, anybody can.
Do you ever realize you don't know how broken you are until you realize, oh, that's beautiful happiness? Whoa. Whoa, I felt... Okay. Part 4 of the Factory 4 Sweet Sweet Revenge, the bittersweet end. Ouch, my nuts, Mike said as Augustus fell into him for the third time.
The tonal shift is fucking crazy.
The tonal shift is so insane.
Every time it hits me like a ton of fucking bricks.
Sorry, Augustus said. It's hard to not step on the nuts, and I have such weak ankles. There's so many nuts. Why must the squirrels travel with so many nuts? Why?
I don't know. Let me see. Mike turned to a squirrel and began speaking with it. Yeah?
I can't believe I used to want my own squirrel, Veruca said. I just want to go home and cry on my bed with my poodle.
She looked on the verge of crying, like she just might be able to have character development.
Bro, the squirrel says he has a huge dick, but won't let me see, Mike said. The question wasn't how big his nuts are, it's why they have to walk around with so many, Augustus said. I'm also concerned by the amount of times walls have broken in this factory. Is it even structurally sound?
As someone who's done it twice now, it's the thrill of a lifetime breaking through a wall. It's really gonna make it hard for me to try to do it at IKEA again once we're out of here. You should totally try it, Mike said.
Idiots, Veruca muttered. I don't think so. I bruise easily, like a marshmallow over fire. It would be...
But in that moment, Augustus slipped on some nuts. The squirrels caught him, but kept moving him forward.
What are they doing?
Hold your head and close your eyes, man. Dreams do come true. What? He saw a wall dead ahead and braced himself as the squirrels used him as a battering ram.
Oh my god. Again, tonal whiplash.
The first hit, he bounced off the wall like it was rubber. The second hit, he smelled a cherry flavor. And on the third hit, he actually got to taste the wall.
Oh, some lovely knot twisters,
Augustus said. The squirrels began to titter in unison as they made one last charge with Augustus. Mike was cackling the entire time as the wall broke through, and Augustus, the squirrels, their many nuts, Mike and Veruca all tumbled through, falling onto another pile of food? Chocolate donuts? Oh, this is the best worst day of my life, man. Give me some Cheetos and Vampire Diaries and a fucking set, Mike said. Augustus turned in a haze and saw art doodles filling the walls. The floor was warm and uneven and started to make sounds. What is this floor? Augustus said. He slapped it hard, multiple times, and it made more noise. He giggled.
This floor is so silly.
Veruca sighed. You're sitting on someone.
Oh, my apologies,
Augustus said, rolling over.
I thought they got, melted into goo for a second. I was like, holy shit, Elaine, what the fuck happened?
Whoa. The person scrambled in the nuts and donuts, and finally a disheveled blonde head poked out, and Augustus's giddiness fled.
Charlie Bucket, Augustus cried.
Charlie scowled. How the hell did you escape? Augustus wanted to say something witty, something biting, but he couldn't think of anything. So instead, he slapped Charlie Bucket 3 times.
You are a meanie, a rotted cup of milk, and lastly and worstly, you are a beach.
Charlie groaned in pain. A beach. Why would he say it like that? I don't know.
No, the accents don't need to follow logic. They don't.
Charlie groaned in pain, his face red from the slaps. The rest of his body was still weighed down by the nuts and squirrels who were now menacingly braiding his hair. Mike crawled over to Charlie and kissed his forehead gently. Good night. What is going on? Charlie said. Augustus looked at Mike.
I agree with the poison butterscotch man. What are you doing?
It's my first curse, Mike said. I can't tell you, otherwise it won't come true.
I am so sick of this,
Veruca said, fighting against her restraints.
Do something before they trap us again and I'm stuck here with all 3 of you.
Did you forget me? They all turned to see Violet twirling a donut around her finger. Traitor, Mike said.
Which?
Veruca said. Bunt cake. Augustus said.
Bunt cake,
Augustus said. He pointed a finger at Violet.
Seize her.
When the squirrels did nothing, a
power overcame Augustus, as though he finally understood the universe and all of time.
Wow.
The tittering suddenly made sense, and he spoke once more in the squirrel language. They reared up and joyously tackled Violet, putting her in restraints. He turned to see Charlie was taken down as well. "You think I can be so easily stopped?" Charlie said. He laughed maniacally. "Everyone knows me. The police are on my side. You'll be jailed for eternity. No one will believe you about Wonka either." Augustus smacked his forehead. "Oh, my silly gooseness, I forgot about Willy Wonka. Completely." "Bro, same, wait," Mike said. Veruca was about to speak, but noticed that no one cared and decided to walk with her squirrel guard to the corner and to be silent.
Wow. Big moment.
Augustus suddenly had an idea. "Squirrels, take the prisoners to the hygiene and vegetable tunnel." "What's your plan, man?" Mike said as Charlie and Violet were taken away by the squirrels, yelling the whole way. "I think it's time we exported these nuts abroad," Augustus said.
Woo-wee.
Epilogue. Augustus asked Hannah Calloway for one last favor, to use her underground connections to ship a large box with air holes in it to a faraway place. As the box was loaded onto the cargo ship, Augustus waved it goodbye. When he turned, Veruca was there, looking annoyed but still granting him a small smile. "I'm glad that's behind us," Veruca said, and she looked pained to say this next part. "Thank you, Augustus, for letting me burn down the factory. I never knew the flames could be so calming and soothe my wounds." Yeah, no problem," Augustus said. He waved to her and walked down the dock, planning to never speak to her ever again. Because why would he? Veruca salt sucked.
Fair.
Mike came up to him, a squirrel on his shoulder. "Dude, okay, so I may have lost the rest of the pills I brought with me, so if a guy named Larry comes up to you and asks where I am, tell him I'm picking up the cash from the restaurant and that the flowers will be in the vase as always."
Okay. Sure, Mike, Augustus said.
"See you for pizza on Thursday?"
Mike said. "I suppose yes," Augustus said. He hadn't expected to have a friendship with Mike of all people, but he figured it may not have to be a long friendship based on the way that Mike led his life.
Oh my god.
Augustus.
Holy fuck.
Augustus. I mean, this is the man who's like been to an urgent care for like,
true.
you know.
Yeah, no, it's true. But damn, girl. Damn.
Augustus continued walking down the dock. The media was in a frenzy over the burning of the chocolate factory. Charlie Bucket and Willy Wonka were presumed dead. The Oompa Loompas had long left the factory and released a 50-page document outlining every wrong they had done. The Wonka name was tarnished overnight. Violet apparently was known to travel for long measures of time, so no one was amiss to the fact that she was gone. Augustus had made sure both her and Charlie would be safe on their travels down. One of the Oompa Loompas who managed the ship, named Mindy, promised that they would make sure that the two found new lives that suited them but would keep the world safe from them at the same time. "Rainforest cafes are really booming abroad," Mindy had assured him. He wasn't sure what she meant by that, but he let it slide. He finally was at the end of the dock, far away from the rest of the people. A man in a large coat with a giant sun hat stood on the pier by a schooner, which is fucking wild that you had him in a schooner.
I know.
And yours.
Boats, bitch. We're moving on from trains and we're on to boats now, bitch.
Scooter life!
A man in a large coat with a giant sun hat stood on the pier by a schooner. A ragged suitcase was at his feet. When Augustus approached, the man turned to him and smiled sadly. "Ah, Augustus Gloop," Wonka said. "Do you have everything you need?" Augustus said. Wonka nodded. His gaze shifted to the horizon where the sun was just rising. "I'm excited, you know. It's been a while since I've seen the world." "Consider this my last slice of humanity pie I shall ever serve you," Augustus said, handing him a map. "Do not ever come back here, Mr. Wonka." "I understand," Wonka said. He looked tired, and Augustus thought that maybe seeing his legacy burned into ash would have destroyed the man, but he somehow seemed lighter. Wonka seemed to sense this and said, "You know, it's easy to get trapped by a name and suddenly become something grander than yourself. I always knew I could trust myself, and that's what I'm actually going to do this time." Wonka picked up his suitcase and boarded the schooner. "Goodbye, Augustus. Until the next lifetime." "Goodbye, Willy Wonka," Augustus said. He watched as Wonka's boat departed, sighing to himself. In the end, he did feel like he'd gotten his revenge. He felt lighter, but that factory had defined him for so long, he had no idea who he was anymore.
He sighed heavily. Augustus Gloop? Augustus turned but saw no one. Down here! Looking below, he saw a frog in a blue tuxedo wearing a bowler hat. I've been trying to track you down for ages, but boy, do you walk fast. I wanted to thank you for what you did with the factory. Augustus blanched. No, what factory? I wasn't even there. Who knew Charlie turned evil and that Wonka would be banished and exiled from me? That's crazy. What are you talking about, little amphibian? Well, there's a select few of us who know all about it, and actually we're in the midst of taking Wonka and Charlie down. The frog took out a tiny wallet, flashing Augustus a badge too small for him to read. My name is Agent Ficklegrubber. He paused, sizing Augustus up. Have you ever thought about becoming a chocolate spy? About an hour later, Augustus Gloop stepped off the dock as the newest agent of the Chocolate Spies News Network, welcomed by his new pal Ficklegrubber, on his way to have warmed pastries with a wolf named Blitzer. The end.
That was an out-of-body experience, Elaine. Out-of-body. When it would tie into the season end? The season end?
Uh-huh. Yep. Because that was another fan fiction I wrote, bitch.
That was so fucking good.
Augustus becoming a chocolate spy.
That's so perfect to me. I love it. And it's wild.
So good.
We kind of had similar themes, too. That's wild. Oh my God. I genuinely rejoiced when I heard Ficklegrubber with the little bowler hat, and he's like this big, too.
Yeah, and he's like, look at my badge. But I like that they would have still printed him a really tiny badge. Like, they would have had to go get special paper and little scissors.
Oh my God. Yeah. I love it. Oh, that's so
Augustus
good.
and Ficklegrubber also is like a little duo. Is
like your
so
two sons.
Cute. My boys.
I did have a thought where I was like, is this Timmy Wonka?
Oh my God.
I'm like traveling.
No, and I liked what I did for Wonka too. Like he has to leave town, but honestly, like he gets to start back where his roots began.
Yeah, and you were like, he's not the worst one here, which is wild.
Shockingly not the worst.
Yeah.
But man, yeah.
All right. I love that. All right. Now we're on to the epilogue of Half a Life. A few weeks later, Christian received a package in the mail. Attached was this note. Wilfred Wonka told me that before I left you had been complaining about me not getting you a souvenir from the cruise. I do think you're entitled, full of yourself, and a bit of an egomaniac, but so am I. To be frank, I'm impressed with what you've done with the Wonka squad and think you're a better leader of them than I could have been. So take this souvenir from me to you as a symbolic passing of the torch. Maybe it'll get Greyhound to have some respect. Love, Jean. P.S. Wilkinson and I have been enjoying our retirement. We've been working on starting an interior design line. Not working too hard, though. Don't worry. I won't fall into that trap again. I have everything I need right here. Tell your private dick I said thank you. In the package was half of Jean Wonka's cane. That night, we had dinner together. Christian looked deep in thought as he twiddled his fork through the spaghetti, destroying the sculpture of a swan that Greyhound had made. You know, I think I might have liked helping Jean. Like, I feel good. That can happen sometimes, I said, sliding my fork into the spaghetti elephant I had been served. Do you think this is worth it? It all feels a bit silly. Eradicating gum, like some sort of Candyland villain. Well, do you still want it? Christian stared into his glass of chocolate milk. I'm not sure anymore. He reached across the table and grabbed my hand. What do you think? I mean, we're all miserable, aren't we? For the record, I'm not miserable. But I think you've perked up since helping Jean. And I think the other Wonkas have too. Christian nodded. Well, maybe that's it then. Maybe we don't need to eradicate gum. Maybe we just help all the other Wonkas find happiness. I mean, before you got here, I accidentally got TJ and Roll together. I mean, those guys were fucked, but they seemed really happy. I think I liked that. Well, that sounds great. But we're gonna need to at least pretend to keep the gum racket going. It takes a lot for a Wonka to be emotionally vulnerable and improve their lives, and it'll be hard to motivate them without the guise of chewing gum's complete annihilation. You're right. See, this is the logical input I was talking about. I don't wear my fedora at mealtimes, so he was able to successfully ruffle my hair. Well, if we're talking about happiness, why don't we start with you? I said. Me? Are you kidding? I've got everything I need right here, Christian said, and gave me a kiss on the cheek. So that's the story of how I, Private Detective Investigator Milano Tollhouse, and my partner Christian Wonka turned the Wonka Squad around. Now instead of eradicating chewing gum, we're working on getting all the Wonkas their fulfilling lives, even if they don't know it. It's hard at times. Their wishes are inscrutable and often difficult to pull off, but it's worth it in the end. I hope they all end up as happy as I am.
Wow. Wow.
Why'd I get emotional reading my Wonka fanfiction?
I need some crackers with that cheese of love.
I know.
My goodness.
Jesus fucking Christ.
My goodness. Oh my goodness.
All of the jokes left the room. It was gone.
We just stayed in a love palace. Honestly, it's just so wholesome because it feels like I just feel like that, and then also like in real life, like having wrapped up the Factory 4, I do feel weird emotions right now.
I know. This is a long time coming. I know.
My baby. It was like one of the first things that like, you know, fully created for the podcast, like, you know, that I let you know, and then like to keep it going. And then, you know, we have these Wonkas getting together and they're keeping it as a ruse, like getting rid of gum to find love for people. It's so fucking good.
I did almost write an epilogue where they're like, well, time to take down Gourmand Eustace Prequel the Third for Wilfred Wonka's
fucking
happiness.
great. That
but
is
I was like,
fucking
I think
great.
that's a bit too much. It might take the wind out of the sails. I kept seeing myself trying to sabotage the wholesome ending, and I was like, no, let it be. You fucking, I can't do sincerity, and I'm working on it. That's a personal note about me and my life. We're moving on. But
Well, based on all of those lovely, lovely writings, do you have any prequel predictions?
boy, wow, wouldn't it be great if I did? I think, and this is a prediction that is very vague, but I think you'll know what I mean. I think Timmy Wonka puts up a front. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think it's broad, either a front of being meaner or nicer than he actually is. Do you know what like something like very much concealing aspects of his personality.
Yes.
It's vague, but fuck it.
No, I'm about to have a weirdly vague one.
Yeah.
I think that there will be some kind of like crash or something gets broken or whatever, and we have that moment where the characters are just sitting there like in the mess. Like I imagine like a classic like the pillow explodes whatever thing, and then one tiny thing will just roll across screen. Like it'll be like the whole wagon blew up and they're sitting there. Well, no, I mean, I'm not saying it's the pillow exploded. I'm saying
I know.
Something
this is
falls
quite
apart and then little things
I know
fall,
exactly what you're saying.
Exactly.
There's a straggler piece that falls.
Yeah, a straggler piece that comes later. So there'll be that scene with a straggler piece.
Well, damn.
Beautiful.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of Wonka Watch. If you enjoyed, you can follow us on TikTok and Instagram at Wonka Watch, and you can send us little emails at wonkarapture@gmail.com. You can also support us on buymeacoffee.com/Wonka Watch. We do a bunch of fun things over there. This month we did an Anastasia commentary track. And we also, it should be up around when this is coming out, if not a few days later, we're doing a Halloween costume roast. All the Wonka Halloween costume roast. We did record an extra thing, which was scary. That's coming out next month. We won't dive too much into it, but it was spooky, okay? We didn't know it was happening, but it was happening. It did happen, but you can join us over there. And if you join, we do a fun little song in your honor if you join our membership. But with that being said, this wasn't important. Honestly, this felt important. I don't feel. Do we need to give the caveats? Because, like, honestly, this was all our doing. We fucking killed it. It was
episode 101.
101. They all came together in the end.
I let my people have happy endings. That's
Are
crazy.
we gonna be crazy? Let's break our formula. This was kind of important. This felt monumental.
This was kind of important. This was a milestone. This
a milestone
felt good.
for us. This felt.
And I'm gonna snuggle it tonight as I fall asleep.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
I'm like having to physically restrain myself from not going back on it.
On what?
on the. It's mostly important. It is kind of important. I keep wanting to just yell. It's not that important, but
it's part of the therapy. We can have sentimentality, and we can say it was kind of important.
It was kind of important, guys. Bye.
It is. Bye.
Big man in the house! Timmy yelled. Wait, no, I didn't do the Timmy voice. Fuck, there's too many voices, Elaine. Big man in the house. What the fuck would his voice be? Big man in the house. There we go. Big man back in the house. You can use the third take of that. I know you probably cut out a lot of that, but I want everyone to know that was like take 4 of Big Man back in the house.